Hello everyone and welcome to another video. The year is 1996, 7 years after it was unceremoniously cancelled by the BBC high-ups. Doctor Who returns to our screens. The TV movie, as it would come to be known among fans, was intended to be a feature-length pilot episode for a brand new series of adventures, but it would unfortunately go down in history as little more than a one-off, although it did arguably help to pave the way for the show's successful revival 9 years later. During its production, the TV movie went through many changes. Initially set on Gallifrey and introducing the Doctor's father Ulysses, it was then going to lead into a rebooted series of remakes, and all of this before it became what we know today. There were also many different actors considered for both the new Doctor and Master. These include Liam Cunningham, Sean Bean, Michael Crawford, Anthony Head and Billy Connolly for the Doctor, and Christopher Lloyd, David Bowie, Dan Aykroyd, Timothy Dalton and Jeff Goldblum for the Master. But included in the actors who were considered for the 8th Doctor were a few who'd actually go on to play the Doctor later on. From actors who later played alternate Doctors, such as Hugh Grant and Rowan Atkinson, to actors who would later play the parts in the main show itself, such as Christopher Eccleston, John Hurt and Peter Capaldi. This all raises a very interesting question. What if things had gone differently? What if, in an alternate timeline, the 8th Doctor had been played by someone else? What if Peter Capaldi was the 8th Doctor? Now I have to thank one of my graphic designers, BillyBob, for this idea. As soon as he suggested it, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. Hence why you're now watching it instead of my season 28 video. But that video is coming very soon, I promise. I just wanted to take a quick break from it and do a hopefully much shorter what if scenario. So what would have had to change so that Peter Capaldi would have been chosen for 8 instead of Paul McGann? Well, not that much really. In our timeline, I believe there were some concerns about McGann's availability when he was first suggested in 1994, so we could have Philip Segal and all the others working on the project decide on Capaldi instead, as his availability would have worked in his favour, apart from some small parts in some TV shows and films. The only thing that might have gone against Capaldi was his involvement in the Neverwhere TV miniseries, which was released in September of 1996. I tried to find out when exactly it was filmed, so as to compare it with when the TV movie was filmed, that being January to February of that year, but there was nothing about it on the internet from what I could see anyway. If you know when Neverwhere was filmed, then please comment below. I should also mention how Paul McGann was only suggested in 1994, and that he didn't actually audition for the part until a year later. Anyway, back to Peter Capaldi. Obviously, he turned down a chance to play 8 in our timeline due to him thinking that he wouldn't get it, and that he didn't want to just be part of a big cull of actors. So in order for this alternate scenario to work, Capaldi would need to not feel like this, and to decide that there was no harm in trying to get the role. Maybe he would have let his love for the show guide him. Now, how likely it is that they would have chosen Capaldi over so many other actors is difficult to say, but we'll just have to say that the casting directors thought that he was the best choice. An interesting question would be what type of accent Capaldi would use for his 8th Doctor. I think he'll be asked to play it with an English accent, but one which an American audience will be able to understand, similar to what Patrick Stewart had to do for Captain Picard in Star Trek The Next Generation. I can't see why a change of lead actor would have any impact on the rest of the cast. So Sylvester McCoy would still play the 7th Doctor, Daphne Ashbrook would still play Grace, Eric Roberts would still play the Master, Yi Ji-so would still play Chang Li, etc. And the overall story of the TV movie probably wouldn't have been changed either. Capaldi might have brought a slightly different type of energy to some scenes to what McGann did. For example, he might be more manic and overjoyed in the scene where the Doctor figures out who he is and starts his whole "these shoes fit perfectly" speech. And just like how he played 12 in our timeline, he might act a bit more confrontational to the Master at times. The 8th Doctor's costume in the TV movie would have probably stayed the same in this scenario. The only difference would be that Capaldi wouldn't need to wear a wig, as his actual hair at the time would have suited the TV movie look perfectly. I can't imagine a change of lead actor affecting a TV movie's fortunes in America, so I think it is likely that it still wouldn't have led to a series, unfortunately. But that then raises a question. Would Peter Capaldi have done Big Finish, just like Paul McGann did? Well, it could go in 2 different directions. If he did, then maybe it might take a bit longer for Big Finish to get him on board, similar to how long it took for them to convince Tom Baker. So instead of starting it in the early 2000s like McGann did, Capaldi would start it 10 or so years later perhaps. Or maybe he would have just done it at the exact same time that Paul McGann did after all. It would obviously depend on his schedule, particularly with things like The Thick of It. But regardless of when he would have done it, I think his 8 would still go on the same character journey that McGann's did. Maybe some of the earliest 8 audios with Charlie Pollard wouldn't have been made if he had started doing Big Finish in the 2010s. Or maybe he would have had the same audios as McGann did no matter what. On the other hand, it is possible that Capaldi might have decided to not do Big Finish after all. He hasn't yet done it in our timeline, and he might not want to return to the role, just like how he doesn't want to in our timeline. And it might be something similar with the Night of the Doctor as well. He might be reluctant to come back to the part, with this decision being partly influenced by the TV movie not leading to a series possibly. But obviously it would be great if he did return for both Big Finish and the Night of the Doctor, if he wanted to. I could imagine him really leaning into the melancholic and hopeless side of the 8th Doctor, seen in both Dark Eyes and during the Time War. So yeah, in an ideal world, he could have come back for both Big Finish and the Night of the Doctor, but only if he was happy to do so, of course, and if his schedule would have allowed it. But then we come to the question of who would play the 12th Doctor in this alternate timeline, as obviously Capaldi wouldn't be able to. Well, we could literally swap 8 and 12 over and have Paul McGann as the 12th Doctor. It might depend on his schedule, but it could be possible. Maybe Stephen Moffat will be inspired to hire McGann after how close he came to playing 8 in this scenario. In terms of how McGann would play 12, I think he might have been a bit softer during Series 8, and I don't think he would have had that whole Dr. Disco thing going on in Series 9, as I don't believe he's into rock music quite as much as Capaldi is. He would probably still have that darker edge at times, of course, but it wouldn't be in the same way as what Capaldi did with 12 in our timeline. it would be quite interesting that Capaldi's co-star in that strange hotel film would end up taking the place that he had in our timeline. But if Paul McGann wasn't available for whatever reason, then I could imagine Ben Daniels as the alternate 12th Doctor instead. He was a choice for the part in our timeline, so it's not impossible that he could have been considered in this scenario as well. Again, I don't think Daniels would have had the whole rock star aspect to 12's character during Series 9, unless I'm mistaken, and he also has an enthusiasm for rock music. I'm not overly familiar with his acting work, so I'm not too sure how else he might play the part differently. But if you have seen a lot of his work, then please let me know how you think he would play 12 in the comments section below. Because of how much input Capaldi had on his 12 costume in our timeline, I don't think it's that likely that Paul McGann or Ben Daniels would have gone with the exact same costume. They probably would have had their own ideas instead. Overall, I think this made for a fun scenario to think about, but I am pretty happy with the way things went in our timeline. Sure, it would have been good if Paul McGann had his own proper era on TV, but if this came at the expense of Peter Capaldi having one, then yeah, I prefer things stayed exactly how they are. But anyway, so there's my take on what if Peter Capaldi was the 8th Doctor. But what did you think? Did you agree with my take on it or not? And would you have done anything differently? And would you like to see more what ifs like this, where I cast a different actor as one of the Doctors? Please let me know in the comments section below. And thanks again to BillyBob for the idea as well as the edits and thumbnail made for this video. By the way, you can now join a What If Discord server I've set up and talk to other fans about anything from what if scenarios to Doctor Who and its various spin-offs to just whatever you want, as long as it's appropriate, of course. A link to the server is in the description, but please don't feel like you have to join it. Only join it if you want to. Anyway, so thanks for watching, I hope you liked it. Please don't forget to press that subscribe button below, as well as press the bell icon at the side of it, so that you'll stay notified of when all my new videos come out. This channel currently has 1,940 subscribers as of time of writing and recording this video. But if we can get to 2,500 by the end of this year, then I will do another Q&A. We can ask me whatever questions you want, just keep them polite please. Also please rate and comment below your thoughts on all of this. And please feel free to donate to my Ko-fi page, link in the description, or send me a YouTube super thanks below, if you want to of course. And I shall see you all in another video. So until next time, bye bye!